Hi everyone. I'm Toby Turtle, the official mascot of STO Summit Spring 2025. We're excited to share the recorded sessions from the world's leading summit on security tokens and real-world assets. Now, let's dive into today's talk from one of our global leaders. Hey Augustine, over to you.
Now we hear from Lawrence Hutson, co-founder and CTO at AdLunam, on tokenized securities in capital markets.
Well, just to start off, just to give a sense of my background, I'm a computer scientist and an economist by training, by academic training, and I was fortunate enough to be involved with as a core developer on the TCP/IP protocol, which is why you're having this Zoom meeting right now. Makes it possible. And after that, I co-founded a company in the United States called Travelocity. Most of you that are not in the United States may not have recognized that, but it was basically Expedia in Europe and Asia. So it was turned out to be we sold Travelocity, turned into Expedia for 280 million, and then so we started basically transforming, and this would be 30 years ago when we were working on the TCP/IP protocol, transforming analog assets into digital form. So that's why you can download a song, have this meeting we're in right now. It was the commercialization or digitization of all analog assets, and it's pretty much complete. It's about if it's about somewhere 98% of the S&P 500 is made up of this digital asset. Not digital assets. Analog assets that have been converted to digital form. So that makes it possible to send a piece of music to 1 million people with just a push of a button. So that's pretty much done. There's not much left to do in that area. And I was pretty much retired, and but I was still doing some work on some projects and different things. And at the time, I had a friend of mine that was a house painter, and he was. We were at a party, and he was saying something about he had bought some Bitcoin, and I was like, okay, so you're in a Ponzi scheme and all of this, and which is kind of weird because I grew up in technology, in the economic framework of technology, and then just didn't get I didn't think there could possibly be anything else to come along after TCP/IP, basically, and but uh, I serendipitously went to a conference in Slovenia, in Marburg, Slovenia, in the middle of nowhere, up in the mountains, in a ski resort. And it just turned out it was a blockchain conference, and people were there from all over the world. So I I I started to envision and see the digital asset framework that blockchain had made possible. And so once I figured out this was as great an invention as TCP/IP, um, I just was all in to do what I had done during the previous technology cycle. And so that turns into, there's only one thing really blockchain is good for, and that's being able to create digital assets. So, and we're now beginning the tokenization of the $900 trillion capital market or assets worth of assets into digital form. That is just beginning now. So that's the wonderful, exciting place where we all are. And yeah, so this is just, we have no idea what's coming, except we do know that there's I've broken it down into kind of two areas for capital markets and tokenization. So one is um, uh, one is um, securities and non-securities. So, and I think the way in my definition of that, you define that as either there's an issuer or not an issuer, and there's only one asset, uh, digital asset that has no issuer, and that's Bitcoin. So they have no issuer. They're it's a true commodity. So we don't have to have regulations. We don't have to have all this stuff around it. We just freely buy and sell it on the market. And when you step into the other types of assets that aren't, they're securities, it's simple, straightforward. If you tokenize them, they're securities, no matter how you look at it, because they have an issuer and they're regulated in the market. So we're starting that process. What I found I've worked with digitizing real estate uh, market, and some of the challenges that we were facing. Also, digitizing some other or tokenizing some other assets classes. So one of the things that has to develop is markets. So we worked up instead of over the counter trading, which we all know is totally inefficient and not transparent. So we have to develop markets. So I worked on a DEX, a decentralized exchange for the real estate market, and we ran into all of the typical things that you would run into with a DEX, because by definition, a DEX is anonymous. And by definition, which I heard some people speaking of earlier, securities aren't anonymous. So anyways, we came up with a framework for that. I did a white paper on it. It never, that's as far as we got it. Then I started working with some other assets, gemstones, where we were tokenizing gemstones. I think, it's a pretty big hunk of assets, wrapped up in gemstones, but it also features kind of whether you're dealing with NFTs or just straight tokens. So if it's non-fungible, where gemstones are non-fungible, right? So you have to have uh, use some kind of NFT type platform to trade against, and then developing a markets for those is even more difficult because it's non-fungible. So it would be more like the NFT OpenSea or something Rarible or something like that. So we're at the beginning of all of this, digitizing all the capital, the assets of the world, and it's going to be a long and awesome journey to get this done and see where you can step in and contribute to the industry.
Thanks for joining us at STO Summit Spring 2025. Stay curious, stay connected, and remember, the future is tokenized.